कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदनंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरवनचारी। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। शृण्वता स्वकतः कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयन्तस्तो यः भद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्। Hare Krishna. We are continuing our discussion from Srimad Bhagavatam, discussion from Canto 3, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service, verse 18. ज्ञान वैराग्य युक्तेन भक्ति युक्तेन चात्मना परिपश्यति उदासीनं प्रकृतिं च हतौजसम्. Once again the verse. ज्ञान वैराग्य युक्तेन भक्ति युक्तेन चात्मना परिपश्यति उदासीनं प्रकृतिं च हतौजसम्. Synonyms: Jnana, knowledge; Vairagya, renunciation; Yuktena, equipped with; Bhakti, devotional service; Yuktena, equipped with; Cha, and Atmana, by the mind; Paripashyati, one sees; Udasinam, indifferent; Prakritim, material existence; Cha, and Hatha Ojasam, reduced in strength. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda, Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. Once again, translation. In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. Purport: As the contamination of the germs of a particular disease can influence a weaker person, similarly, the influence of material nature or illusory energy can act on the weaker or conditioned soul, but not on the liberated soul. Self-realization is the position of a liberated state. One understands his constitutional position by knowledge and vairagya, renunciation. Without knowledge, one cannot have realization. The realization that one is an infinitesimal part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit makes him unattached to material conditional life. That is the beginning of devotional service. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, one cannot engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. In this verse, it is therefore stated, Jnana Vairagya Yuktena, when one is in full knowledge of one's constitutional position and is in the renounced order of life, detached from material attraction, then by pure devotional service, Bhakti Yuktena, he can engage himself as a loving servant of the Lord. Paripashyati means that he can see everything in its right perspective. Then the influence of material nature becomes almost nil. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma When one is realized, he becomes happy and free from the influence of material nature. And at that time, he is freed from lamentation and hankering. The Lord states that position as Mag Bhaktim Labate Param, the real state of beginning devotional service. Similarly, it is confirmed in the Narada Pancharatra that when the senses are purified, they can be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. One who is attached to material contamination cannot be a devotee. Let's do the verse and translation once again, and then we'll get into the discussion. Jnana vairagya yuktena bhakti yuktena chatmana paripashyati udasinam prakritim cha ataujasam. Translation. In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधरा श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So the two primary tangents or the points from this verse are the jnana and vairagya. Jnana vairagya yuktina. Knowledge, which is the jnana, and vairagya, the renunciation. And the first verse that came to my mind as I was preparing with this concept of jnana and vairagya. We also have this famous verse from Bhagavatam, the first canto, second chapter, seventh verse, where it says, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahaitukam. So it says, by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Similar lines here. Kapila Dev is saying, in that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation and devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. And then he becomes indifferent to material existence. So it's like, it's even in the other verse, the Vasudeva Bhagavati, Prabhupada basically goes quite extensively into what is real knowledge and what is even renunciation means. And here also Prabhupada kind of extensively describes, he starts with how knowledge enables somebody who is in knowledge, and both renunciation enables somebody who is in, that is actually the starting point of the whole performance of devotional service, if we can call it that way. And interestingly, Prabhupada starts this with somebody who is in a weaker position. The diseases affect him, but somebody who is on a liberated platform, who is endowed with this self-realization through vairagya and which is renunciation and jnana, knowledge, then he's in a much stronger position. So, and Prabhupada also says that without knowledge, one cannot have realization, which is, as we all kind of understand also, that knowledge is the first step, and then it becomes jnana, vijnana, and then like when you kind of apply the knowledge in your day to day and kind of imbibe into our hearts, then that's when you kind of get into this realization. So I was so when we kind of think of knowledge, many times it's kind of this understanding of oh, knowledge means kind of having this ability. So many a times we might have this misconception that somebody who is quite eloquent in speaking is knowledgeable, or somebody, if you're able to quote one verse, then somebody who is able to kind of bring out all the related, the the parent verse for the child verse, and then like the sibling verses, somebody like if this verse is quoted from Mundaka Upanishad, then who is able to correlate that with Katha Upanishad, and so on and so forth. We might have this understanding that, oh, that's knowledge. But if we kind of think from that perspective of having this ability of quoting verses and all of that, then it again, as Prabhupada is pointing out, and as this verse is also clearly pointing out, it's the perspective. So if that is the perspective that we are trying to kind of understand what is knowledge, then if we look through the scriptures and through our lives of our acharyas, we find enough evidences that kind of questions both the definition of knowledge in this perspective and also renunciation. And like Prabhupada also, I think it was a couple of weeks back on a Saturday that Yamuna Jivan Prabhu was giving a class on this the same topic of renunciation, and how Prabhupada starts with saying that renunciation means leaving everything and then going to forest. And then going further into the purport, Prabhupada says not everybody might be able to follow that, but he kind of gives that. And Yamuna Jivan Prabhu went further into how in the present day and life that we have, what does renunciation further mean for us? So, but if you are also looking at as knowledge as the definition of just having this information gathering, and then renunciation meaning kind of leaving everything aside, kind of just as it is said, just kind of taking the letter of the words that it is there. Like many times we kind of fear that, oh, Kunti Maharani was so renounced that she just left everything and she just wanted to leave everything and then kind of wanted more troubles. And even in the previous chapter that we had, it says the renunciation of Kardama Muni. Oh, Kardama Muni was so renounced that he didn't add any attachment to his family, or even after kind of having going through all of this, then he was just so renounced and left everything and then just went away. So if we are kind of thinking it that from that perspective of knowledge and renunciation, then when we look through our scriptures, um, just the pages of Bhagavatam itself and kind of expanding that the lives of our acharyas, we find enough evidence that at every step kind of questions the definition of the mundane definitions, if I can use that word, just the mundane definitions of the knowledge and renunciation that we might have. And I just wanted to kind of add this before we kind of go further. In the first canto, second chapter, the seventh verse that we just spoke about, where it says Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Asu Asu Vairagyam Jnanam Hayetikam. So in that verse, Prabhupada writes these lines. He says, yeah, the principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual path process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual. And the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with a poor fund of knowledge think. Naishkarma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from the inferior things and it becomes attached to superior things. So I kind of wanted to kind of take it in two phases of this statement that Prabhupada is saying. The process of spiritual, the whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything, material and spiritual. So it's with under, yeah. So if I can kind of rephrase that statement of Prabhupada, where he's saying the whole process of spirituality leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual. It kind of tying back to the word that specifically used by Kapila Dev in here, the perspective. So the knowledge that both Kapila Dev is referring to here and what Prabhupada is kind of expanding in this in both the purports is having that the perfect perspective of what of if I can use the perspective of the material and the spiritual, like it's not the knowledge cannot be quantified as having access in our head to all this metadata of information where we can just kind of pick the verses. But what is the perspective of my existence? What is the use of my existence? What is the perspective that I'm looking at? We kind of say that the entire creation is perfect, but there are certain questions that everybody asks. If it is perfect, then why is there pain and sorrow? And there's so much imperfection that we see around the world. So, what is the perspective of when Ishopanishad says that what the Lord is perfect, and then everything that he creates is also perfect? So what is the perspective that Ishopanishad is encouraging us to kind of develop to understand that everything the Lord is creating is perfect? um, it's kind of understanding, having the perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual, everything kind of seeing everything from that perspective of the performing of the service of the Lord. And in that way, when we kind of are that is what the knowledge that is being referred to here. And the best example that we can all think is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. It can be definitely argued that in recent times, um, there is no way that we can find somebody as eloquent, somebody as knowledgeable, somebody as charming as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He's somebody who kind of went through the whole Surya Siddhanta when he was still in his teens. And so that's from just from the intellectual standpoint. And from the family hierarchy standpoint, he is son of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who is considered the father of modern Krishna consciousness, somebody who has revived the Gaudiya Sampradaya as it was kind of in its crumbling phases, as like there was no unified force that was taking forward. And here comes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who's kind of pushing it forward, kind of he's having these miraculous visions that were given by Lord Chaitanya of this Adbhuta Mandir, and he's the one who has identified the birthplace of the Mahaprabhu Yoga Peeth. So if Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted, he kind of might have maybe he could have gone to anybody. And if the perspective that he was having of knowledge and renunciation was in this the perspective that we are seeing should not be there. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is kind of is that living experience of this understanding of what knowledge means and what is renunciation means. Is he goes to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj and requests, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, please, I'd like to be your disciple. Not just because somebody kind of is forcing him or somebody, but he genuinely feels that, and he kind of requests Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, renders service, and then eventually Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj says, yes, I will give you. So Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj is not somebody whom we consider is in the standard definition of somebody who is eloquent, charming, or anything. He was somebody who kind of would lock himself in these places where nobody could come, so they'll not disturb him when he was performing his bhajan. So he didn't wanted uh, kind of he's somebody who kind of breaks the mold of the spiritualist, if you can kind of use that word, who set out to kind of break this mold of these mundane definitions of knowledge and renunciation. And kind of expanding that also, if we consider renunciation as just taking sannyas, then the question could be asked there is obviously many examples that we can see, but considering that we just celebrated Gaura Purnima, I wanted to kind of discuss about Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So if we consider renunciation as just taking sannyas, then was Pundarik Vidyanidhi renounced? Was the same question Gadadhar Pandit also had when so the story goes like this. Pundarik Vidyanidhi was kind of not a famous personality in the initial chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And suddenly one day, it so happens with Mahaprabhu that suddenly he remembers some of his devotees and starts remembering them and then kind of chanting their names. It happened with Narottam Das Thakur when he suddenly kind of went into the river Padma and then started saying Narottam, Narottam, and even before that. And so similarly, one day as Mahaprabhu was sitting around with his devotees and kind of they were having discussion, suddenly Mahaprabhu goes into an ecstatic mood and starts calling out the name of Vidyanidhi, Vidyanidhi, and nobody understands who Vidyanidhi is. And then everybody starts asking, my dear Mahaprabhu, who is this Vidyanidhi that you're so lovingly calling towards? Then Mahaprabhu says, very soon a great devotee is going to come to Navadvip, and you'll all understand his glories very soon. And there are a couple of devotees who were from the same town as Pundarik Vidyanidhi was, I think, Chattogram, who, who were at that point of time living in Navadvip. It was Mukunda and one more devotee. But these two devotees kind of understand the glories of Pundarik Vidyanidhi because they have seen him closely because of being of the same town. They have observed, they have seen what an amazing personality Pundarik Vidyanidhi was. And the days pass on, and Pundarik Vidyanidhi actually comes into Navadvip, but he kind of nobody realizes that, as we have seen recently in the drama, when Sanatan Goswami comes and Chandrasekhar Pandit, when Mahaprabhu asked Chandrasekhar Pandit, "Oh, Chandrasekhar Pandit, there is a devotee at your doorstep. Please bring him in." Chandrasekhar Pandit says, "Oh, there is no devotee." Then when he comes in, Chandrasekhar Pandit actually realizes, "Oh, wow, this is Sanatan Goswami. I didn't even realize." So similarly, when Pundarik Vidyanidhi entered the place, they entered Navadvip, nobody could actually identify who Pundarik Vidyanidhi was. And he was just going by his business and all of that, except for the three devotees, except for three people in Navadvip, nobody knew who Pundarik Vidyanidhi was and what are his amazing qualities. It was Mukunda and the other devotee, and obviously Mahaprabhu would know when Pundarik Vidyanidhi entered. And the days pass on, and Pundarik Vidyanidhi is externally just behaving like an amazingly rich person who is just kind of splurging money, being busy in sense gratification. And and then the other person in this story, which is Gadadhar Pandit, who he was this renounced brahmachari, who was kind of quite strict with his vows, quite strict with the whole idea of renunciation and all of that. That's how Gadadhar Pandit was. And as the story goes on, Mukunda one day says, "Oh, Gadadhar Pandit, let's go and meet a wonderful devotee that I know of, and I'm sure you like meeting him." It's like the story of it's a life story. It's like a life-changing story that Srila Prabhupada also had when one of his friends asked him, "Oh, Abhay, let's go and meet this wonderful devotee. I'm sure you'll like it." Um, Abhay Charan, at that point, Srila Prabhupada, Abhay Charan kind of didn't wanted to go and meet, but when he met him, it just changed his entire life and by extension, all of our lives. So similarly, when Mukunda was asking Gadadhar Pandit, Gadadhar, let's go and meet this amazing devotee that has recently come to our town. I'm sure you'll feel blessed and you'll be happy about meeting him. So Gadadhar Pandit was like, okay, let's go and meet him. And so when they meet, when they go to this place where Pundarik Vidyanidhi was staying, it was kind of in an assembly form where Pundarik Vidyanidhi was sitting in the center when he was just having like a gala time. There's some discussions going on. There was some juices or wine that was being served and whatnot. It was nothing like an assembly that Gadadhar Pandit imagine that you would walk in for meeting a great devotee. If we all are, it's like the perspective, right? As Kapila Dev is saying, we have a certain perspective that the devotee should be of this stature. Um, when you're if I'm going to a place where I think is there are obviously protocols. We're not denying that there are protocols to be followed, there are certain etiquettes to be followed, but then sometimes there are certain people who kind of break open that mold of the stronger definitions that we are trying to create. And in this case, Pundarik Vidyanidhi is giving us that example. So they walk in, and Gadadhar Pandit walks in, and Gadadhar Pandit then starts questioning who is even devotee here. It is just seems everything that is contradictory to devotional service. There's why is even Mukunda brought me here? There's no point of me coming here, and like there's this the reels of questioning going in Mukunda's head, and as it is happening uh, in Gadadhar Pandit's head, as it is happening, then Mukunda kind of realizes what Gadadhar Pandit is thinking, and then he starts to sing this amazing verse, Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam. Then, as the verse is just there's the starting verse of when he says, "What an amazing fortune is for this Bakiya, the sister of Bakasura, that just by giving." Even by giving the stana is her breast, and even when she offered her breast, which was smeared with kalakuta, which is the greatest poison that is ever known, and just when that single line was spoken, then Pundarik Vidyanidhi just immediately kind of there's externally there nothing has changed. The place is still the same. The people around Pundarik Vidyanidhi were still the same. The place where Pundarik Vidyanidhi was sitting was the same. The things that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was holding were the same. But internally, everything transformed for Pundarik Vidyanidhi. I think I'll have to rephrase that. Whatever the internal things that were there for Pundarik Vidyanidhi just became externally manifest. Earlier, externally, Pundarik Vidyanidhi was doing something. Whatever was his internal was kind of not visible. But once this words, the just this line of Aho Bakiyam Stanakala Kutam was Mukunda started singing these words. Even before, it was not that he had to end the verse and then kind of tell Pundarik Vidyanidhi, hey, this is the verse that I'm going to say. Nothing. He just started singing out of random. And the moment he started singing, Pundarik Vidyanidhi just went into this ecstatic um, feelings of imagining the amazing glories of that Lord Krishna, who has delivered even the sister of Bakasura, who has come to kill him through using this the poison. And when Gadadhar Pandit sees that, he just understands what a personality Pundarik Vidyanidhi was. And then he says, oh, what have I even done? Did I even question such a personality? And then he regrets everything that he has, the whole reels of questions that were going on in his head. He just stops it, and he says the only atonement for the offense that I have performed is going and taking shelter of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. That is the only way that I can kind of atone for the offense that I've performed um, at the feet of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And this reminds me of one class or discussion that I've heard where they said that the offense, the action that we have performed to a devotee or to anybody for that matter, the offensive action should always be the corrective action that we are trying to take to nullify the offensive action should be much greater than the offensive action that we have taken. For example, we didn't like somebody, and then we just kind of went ahead and gossiped about him, saying that, oh, this person is so terrible, this person is so terrible. So that's the offensive action that we have performed. So the corrective action cannot be just that we going to that devotee and saying, oh Prabhu, I misunderstood you, I'm sorry. That will not nullify the offensive action that we have performed. The offensive. So in that case, it's kind of, as much as openly we have spread the assumed mistakes of the devotee, to a farther degree, kind of also propagate the glories of the devotee. Oh, whoever we meet, oh, this devotee is so amazing. That the same thing that even Mahaprabhu also proposed to Madai. When Madai was saying, oh, I've performed this so many offenses to so many devotees, then Mahaprabhu says, build a ghat and just stand there, and any devotee that is walking through your ghat, pay your obeisances, and then ask for forgiveness. And it's so, the story goes on, it says that when Madhai would be like, there was so much of pain, and I wouldn't use the word anger in because, but there was so much of pain in the hearts of these devotees that are being at one point wronged by both Jaga and Madhai, that it's not easy to kind of just because this story happened, it might appear easy that, oh, Mahaprabhu said that from this point on Madhai is a devotee, so let's just forgive him. But for many people who have been brutally wronged by what Madhai had done, like maybe there might have been fathers whose daughters were raped. That's not easy for any father to go through. Maybe there were husbands whose wives were raped, or there were wives whose husbands were killed, or there were children whose parents were brutally killed, or like there were these horrible things that Jagai Madai did before this the transforming pastime that Nityananda Prabhu did. So it's not from the perspective of story, it appears easy that from that day on, yes, everybody should be transformed. There's no way that everybody would question. But the story goes on saying that when Madai got transformed. There's no question in thinking that, oh, was Madai even transformed? Is this story even reality? Or so the point is not that. The point is Madai truly transformed himself, and when he was asking devotees for forgiveness, some of the devotees, the moment they were seeing him, there was the pain that was in their heart was just coming out, and they didn't know what to do. And then so they would take these stones and throw it Madai. And interestingly, Madai would bring back those stones and give it back to the devotee and say that, what I've done to you, the punishment that you're giving me by hitting me with this stone, I deserve much more. So please hit me again. So he would bring back the stones and give it to these devotees. And when these devotees would see the actual transformation on in front of their eyes, here is the person who was running around killing anybody that he was seeing, looting anybody that he was seeing. Here is the person who is coming back and giving me that stone and saying, I deserve much more. Please hit me. So the same thing, kind of extension of that in the case of Pundarik Vidyanidhi and Gadadhar Pandit also, is Gadadhar Pandit felt the, if you can call it that way, the offensive action that Gadadhar Pandit did in this case of Pundarik Vidyanidhi was, he was just mentally, but it's not that he went around and started saying, oh, Pundarik Vidyanidhi is not a devotee, I don't even know why Mukunda took me. He didn't do that. It was just in his head. He was just questioning, why am I here? Why did even Mahaprabhu call for Vidyanidhi? What kind of a devotee is he? This like everything that, if you see that way, everything that Gadadhar Pandit wanted to stay away from, it appeared that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was kind of embracing all of those things. Worldly discussions, worldly people, and whatnot. Gadadhar Pandit as Brahmachari kind of wanted to stay away from everything. And then Gadadhar Pandit realized that, oh, I need, the only way that I can atone for the offense that I performed at the feet of Vidyanidhi is by actually taking shelter of the same lotus feet and taking initiation from him. And immediately then Gadadhar Pandit goes and says to Pundarik Vidyanidhi, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, please, I've offended you, but I understand now what an amazing personality that you are. I would like to take your shelter and be your disciple. And then Vidyanidhi eventually agrees and then accepts him as disciple. But the interesting thing is, just because Gadadhar Pandit took initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he didn't transform himself and become like Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Gadadhar Pandit was still Gadadhar Pandit, the simple brahmachari, as he was, as the in if you can use that word of the letter definition of renunciation, he was like the perfect example of the letter definition of the renunciation and the knowledge. He kind of is somebody who's religious, reading scriptures and other things. He did not just transform himself and he did not change, oh, my guru is of this personality, so let me also change. He didn't change. Neither did Pundarik Vidyanidhi change. Pundarik Vidyanidhi, even after that, everybody then understood that what kind of a personality that he was. Just because now everybody understood there's a certain bar that I've set, oh, because this verse was spoken and then there was this ecstatic trembling that I have performed. So there's a bar that is set, and that is the bar that I have to always live by. So it's not that he just stopped being himself. So Pundarik Vidyanidhi kind of continued being himself. It's kind of the perspective of how Gadadhar Pandit was seeing Pundarik Vidyanidhi changed, and similarly for others, how they were seeing Vidyanidhi has changed. But for Pundarik Vidyanidhi, nothing has changed. His life continued being the same, and everything continued being the same. So it's as Prabhupada and um, as Kapil are helping us trying to understand through the process of devotional service in that position of self-realization, what knowledge and renunciation helps us is not just seeing everything else also in right perspective, but also seeing these two aspects of, because when we combine everything, it's not that the aspect of knowledge and renunciation are kind of seen in an aloof. So everything, what is the right perspective of seeing knowledge, what is the right purpose of utilizing knowledge, what is the right purpose of renunciation, what is even the right purpose of being in a in the mode of grihastha life, or what is the right purpose of being in brahmachari life. I remember this discussion that happened in last week during the seminar that Nityanand Pran Prabhu and Hemangi Mataji were giving. They were talking about slowing down, and it was, I think the topic was VIP, and then they were basically talking about slowing down and seeing everything internally. Kind of in externally it might not be possible to kind of slow down. In the case of Gadadhar Pandit, externally there is nothing that he could stop. The place continued to be remain as is, everything kind of was the same thing, but internally it kind of, he stopped himself and kind of started seeing the amazing personality that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was. So externally, in some situations there's nothing that we might be able to change, but with the right perspective, when we are slowing down ourselves and kind of seeing everything in that right perspective of in the service of how it can be utilized in the service of Rashi Radha Shyam Sundar, then that's when kind of, that's as Srila Prabhupada says, he says here in one of the lines, he says that is the beginning of devotional service. And when we start to see everything in that right perspective of how do we utilize knowledge or renunciation in performing devotional service, then that's when is the beginning of devotional service. And the best example for this is, as we have seen, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, and so many others. And there is also this amazing story also from Srila. We'll just talk about this and then we'll end this story. Is There's this amazing story of Parashara Bhatta. Parashara Bhatta is the son of Kuresha, Kuresha is one of the primary prominent disciples of Srila Ramanujacharya. And when Ramanujacharya wanted to kind of, when when it was time for that kind of eventually that he had to pass on the baton to somebody who is as capable as him, then he calls Kuresha and says that I would like to have you children. And then eventually the Mahaprasad of Sri Ranganath goes in, and then they conceive, Kuresha and his wife conceive twins. And those two twins were Parashara Bhatta and his brother. And it is told that in the childhood of Parashara Bhatta, his cradle used to be in the altar of Sri Ranganath. And that's where his cradle, his bedroom was Sri Ranganath's altar. And that's where it's as if he and his brother are sons of Sri Ranganath and Rangadevi. So at this point, Parashara Bhatta was a small boy, and I think even less than 5 years old. It's like much younger than my two boys. And he was just walking around in Sri Ranganath, living in his parents' house, just walking around. And he sees this huge palanquin of people coming, and then there is this drums being played and all of that. And then he asked somebody, "Who is this? This is a great debater. He has come and he wanted to debate with all the scholars that are available, that are in Sri Rangam, and he wanted to defeat all of them and then go away." Then Parashara Bhatta goes to this person. I think this person's name was Sarvajana Bhattar. Parashara Bhatta goes to Sarvajana Bhattar. Parashara Bhatta is just a 5-year-old boy. There's this huge army of people. He pushes around and then walks to the palanquin. It's not easy in that huge army of people to walk to the central place. But Parashar Bhatta somehow finds place and then goes to the central place, and then he looks up towards that palanquin, and then he says, "Do you think you know everything?" And that person says, "What is that question even? I'm the Digvijay Pandit. I'm the person who has defeated every other scholar in this entire land of Bharat, and that is not even a question to ask me. I know everything." And Parashar Bhatta then, like, you see sand everywhere in Srirangam, right? He just takes the sand in his fist, and then he says, "Tell me how many molecules of sand are there in this." And the moment the purity of Parashara Bhatta and the intention of Parashara Bhatta was not to kind of drag this person down or not to insult this person, but to just help this person. So the intention was in right place, and there is no question of purity of Parashara Bhatta, and everything was perfect in Parashara Bhatta. The age was something that just charms her out. As Srila Prabhupada says, there are certain things an old man can say, but somebody who is younger cannot say. So similarly, there are certain things when a small child does it, it just feels cute. So when Parashar Bhatta kind of took this sand and then shoved into his near to his face and said, how many molecules of sand are in my fist? Then it just everything became clear for Sarvajana Bhatta, and then he immediately jumps down from the palanquin and then pays obeisances to Parashara Bhatta and says, "Thank you for helping me understand that I don't know anything." Just by this simple act of asking him how many molecules of sand are in my hand, Parashara Bhatta made him realize that the knowledge that he's seeking is that he has to renounce the idea of the knowledge that he is coming with, is that I am the Digvijay Pandit. I know everything. When just by this simple act of the purity and of having that right intention for Parashara Bhatta, then everything became clear for Sarojana Bhatta. And then he kind of fell at the feet of Parashara Bhatta, who was just a small boy of 5 years old. He immediately falls at the feet of Parashara Bhatta and says, "Oh, Parashara Bhatta, thank you so much for saving me. This, if not for you, I don't know what I would have even done." And this story is 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 uh, is kind of a living example of this verse of Vasudeva Bhagavati, where it says, "By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. And at this point, when by extension of when we say that by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, with the definition, with the understanding that Srila Prabhupada has given, rendering service to a devotee is in many ways not different from rendering, with obviously with that right perspective. Again, when we are rendering service to a devotee with the right perspective of him, I'm trying to serve him because of how closely he's connected to the Lord. With that right perspective, when we're trying to serve a devotee, then it is not different from trying to serve, performing the devotional service. So in this case, when Sarvajana Bhattar was kind of fell at the feet of Parashara Bhatta, that became in many ways like the cause for the causeless knowledge and detachment that entered into his heart. At that point, the right perspective of seeing the knowledge kind of became like it was revealed into his heart, and he truly became detached from it. It's not easy when you have many a times I kind of think through these stories for somebody who is sitting on this palanquin. There's a huge army of people glorifying you, playing I think most of us are from South India. We see that when this great personality is coming in, there is this what we call in Telugu is Mangala Vaidyalu. There is this drums being played and whatnot. So there's this whole pomp that's going on around you, and it's not easy for somebody to, in that position, to fall at the feet of a 5-year-old and ask, "Can you be my spiritual master?" It's definitely not easy. That truly shows what kind of transformation and the detachment that Sarvajana Bhatta had just by that small interaction with the Parashara Bhatta. So I'll end with that story of like all of us also definitely have access to the representatives of Parashara Bhatta who have this amazing um, union of purity and intention. Srila Prabhupada is that there's so many devotees that we have in our lives who have this amazing union of, in the case of like Parashara Bhatta, have this amazing union of having proper intention with well-placed purity of heart that they have. And all we have to do is just take shelter at their feet, and that eventually kind of brings us to the point of where the causeless knowledge and detachment from the world kind of will awaken. And once that's there, then as Srila Prabhupada is saying here, there's nothing additional that we have to do. As long as we're able to kind of attach ourselves. It says, when one is full in knowledge of one's constitution position, detached from material attraction, then by pure devotional service, he can engage himself as a loving service of the Lord. Um, so it's kind of just taking forward and then attaching ourselves to the higher taste. And once that point kind of brings about, then as Sarvajana Bhattar is showing, and so many other stories, if you kind of, there are unlimited stories for if you can kind of go forward and discuss, but we don't want to take too much of time now. So we'll end with this. So with that understanding of and praying at the feet of Parashara Bhatta and all his representatives in our lives, past, present, and also in future. Who knows in future what kind of amazing devotees that we will all meet. So just taking shelter deeply internally, like how Gadadhar Pandit has taken the shelter of Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and how Sarvajana Bhatta had taken the shelter of Parashara Bhatta. Just taking shelter of all the devotees that we have in our lives, and that truly will help us kind of understand everything in the right perspective and kind of move forward in our lives. I'll end it here. I'm sorry if I misrepresented or misspoke anything, but if there are any corrections or questions, then we can take it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for a nice class, nice stories, and to talk about that Jnana and Vairagya features. So, both the Pundarik Vidyanidhi and this Parashara Bhatta one. So thank you so much. Very nice class. I think you also talked about um, the recovery or the what do you call to come out of the offense that one is committed. The
Yeah,
act has to be more than the offense itself.
yeah, that was like, it was like, oh wow, for me when I heard.
Yes. Thank you. I mean, yeah. First of all, understanding that one committed offense is a big thing.
Yes. It's easy to think I just had to do it that way.
Yeah. Thank you, bro.
Thank you so much, bro, for the service. If nothing else, then we can end it. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय।
Thank you.
हरे कृष्ण।
Balram Prasad Prabhu joined. I think he
Oh,
might be hearing on
Hare
YouTube.
Krishna.
He,
Sorry,
does, he
I
doesn't
was.
get the association to us in person, Prabhu, in Zoom. He will hear on YouTube only.
so
Yeah.
we need
Prabhu,
special.
I really liked your class the way you were saying. I don't know how you remember every pastime connected to that.
No, no.
The Bhagavatam verse you said, right? How the. What is the verse you said? I totally forgot already.
Vasudeva Bhagavati.
Vasudeva Bhagavati Praktiyoja Prayojita, right? So
Yeah.
that one, you took that verse and gave so many explanations of how Chaitanya Charitamrita, how many devotees took it into consideration. It was so nice. It was very nectarian flow. And then I was thinking, okay, we are hearing all this pastime. That's great. But how do you think we can plug in this? That's just a kind of a reflection for me. Then I realized that when, of course, I did not come to Kishore yesterday on the Gaura Purnima day. The one thing is when Maharaj came, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj came, the whole thing was very vibrant.
Mhm.
I could feel the vibration, how it happened, how Maharaj came, starting from the Abhishek to all the way to the class and then the ecstatic Kirtan, right? And how the way I was thinking, Prabhu, he has love for Krishna, and he has a mood in how he wants to serve Krishna, and he
Mhm.
wants to distribute to everyone, all his disciples and others, that love to others. So I was thinking, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give the love of Godhead, and Maharaj is taking the same responsibility of Sankirtan and giving the love of Godhead. And we don't have to do anything, just plug in the system, just follow them, and we might also even one day get there with all the Chaitanya Charitamritas, the way
Yes.
you said in one of the devotees, one after the other, one after the other. I was literally thinking, is it possible for me to get there? Then I realized, yes, it is possible only by the association and the grace and the mercy of pure Vaishnavas. It'll automatically happen. Then I went back all the way to Narada Muni, how he was totally unqualified. He was just a little bit, just a son of this maid servant, and how he became such a such a devotee, which he is completely independent. Yes, is completely free. He can travel anywhere in the universe, right? So it's just only the association and just plug in the system and just little bit mercy of the devotees, Mahabhagavatas, that made him elevated in such a high class devotee. So these are all very nectar and then kind of a pearls. Everything was coming out of your speech, actually. Of course, I was doing in some seva here in the temple, but parallelly I was listening all this. So very wonderful, actually.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for association.
Thank you. Actually, recently I was hearing one class of Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was talking in the same lines. He was saying the only reason the Bhakti Vedantis were even taking break was not just because it is it is difficult for them to travel, or those are just the external reasons. The primary internal reasons these devotees
Give them
just
mercy.
wait is just to give their association,
Mm.
so that somebody will be held, will kind of will be uplifted by their association. So even in that, it's kind of giving their association was in the mood of service, and just that act of them stopping their travels and waiting gave us Narad Muni. That's what Prabhupada was talking. So it's
That another thing, it came up when you're saying this, the mercy. We might sometimes think, oh, okay, mercy is there, but when do we think that fructifies? Correct.
mm,
Uh, Going back to the Ajamil pastime, those devotees who saints who came to his house, they blessed them and told the name as Narayan. That's the right
mm.
word name. And they were actually maybe Triloka. What do you call the future? They know the prediction of future. And
Trikalagna.
Trikalagna. So they might know this is what going to happen. But let us all bless him, this
Correct.
family, even though they are very fallen now. Ajamil is totally fallen. Maybe one point of time he will be liberated. But look at what happened at the time of death. He realized. So I was thinking, it's not that we need to wait for this life or next life, or doesn't matter. If has to come and Krishna has to give that mercy, even
Mhm.
at the time of death, it can happen, right? It can happen
Correct.
because he did not follow anything, just by the name, just by the name. He was purified, and he gave that Krishna gave another chance to purify himself, go back. It's amazing. Of course, these scriptures are giving us the practical examples and realities in our life. The more we hear, we will develop more and more and more and more faith.
Yes.
Otherwise, we will slowly, if you don't hear for a few days, then the faith will come down and chanting will come down and Bhagavatam will come down. So it's just like we have to plug in every day. Nityam Bhagavata Seva. Anyway,
Thank
Prabhu,
you so much.
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining, bro.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, I think we'll end it. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Mata.